Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to the wide world of wrestling. We're back for another week. My name's Simon Tackler. Joining me is my co-host, Neil Walters. Neil, welcome to the show.
What's going on? It's an interesting week to talk about wrestling, as we're obviously going to say some things straight away about what's been happening. The world's a very dark place currently. We've had COVID and everything going on, and then the one thing that we have been kind of looking forward to and appreciating has been wrestling, and now it seems as though that's turned into a pretty dark place at the moment. So
yeah, it was weird because when we started the show again a couple of months back, we were saying like, hey, you know, everyone's in lockdown. We're all in this tough situation. Like you said, wrestling has been a comfort, sort of this childhood thing for us, like people our age and even younger fans. They turn to wrestling to escape. They always sell it that way. It's escapism. But obviously anyone listening to this would have been reading about, you know, the hashtag speaking out movement that's been going on, these horrific things that have been happening in the world of wrestling. And the thing that makes it hard, it's not an isolated incident. It's not a one-off. You can't even say, oh, okay, that's horrible. This person's a piece of shit. It kind of feels like everyone's in the same boat, and it's horrific.
Yeah, look, I think it's, as I've been a part of the music industry for quite a while now, I've seen this before. I've seen this happen. And I thought that wrestling wasn't that kind of culture, and it is. Look, to put it brief and to put it basic, because I don't know enough about what's going on to talk about too much. But I simply think that everyone needs to do better. Everyone needs to be held accountable for their actions, and everyone needs to stand up for what needs to be done. Like if you are seeing this kind of stuff happen, then it needs to be called out and it needs to be stamped out, because no industry, wrestling, music, anything deserves to have this kind of stuff going on in it. So, yeah, we just all need to do better for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how it exactly started. It feels like a bunch of stories just came out at once, but good on all those women and then the guys and everyone else who joined in and was like, you know what, fuck this shit, because you're right, it should be called out. And everyone should do better. But the thing that really shocked me, we like to think that, okay, you know, wrestling was like this in the 80s and the 90s. And there's been such a big push the past few years that, you know, wrestling is for everyone. And, you know, we see the hashtags. I don't want to say it's not surprising, but what's shocking is that a lot of these people who are being accused of things were sort of part of the scene, or like people pushing so hard that wrestling has changed now, and you can look to me as an example of it being better. And the fact that there were some of those guys thrown in there too just makes it worse. It's bad, full stop. But the fact that there's some of those makes you feel like, okay, does everyone have an ulterior motive? Who can you trust? And that must be terrible for the women working in the industry to be like, okay, well, I thought this was a safe space. And then it's like, well, it's not. But yeah, I'm glad they've spoken up, and I'm glad that some of these pieces of shit can be weeded out of the industry.
Exactly. I think that what it comes down to is people with too much what they perceive as power and too many, the ego's running wild, and people think that they can do anything they want to and get away with it. So obviously it's something that needs to be stamped out incredibly quickly, because especially with how dominant female wrestling is becoming now, we want people to feel that they're in a safe space no matter what. Like, that's just fact. Whether it's the music industry, whether it's wrestling, whether it's anything, people need to feel safe in what they're doing, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah. I don't know what else we can say more about the topic.
No, I think that's it. I think we move on from there, and let's talk about the positives and the great things about wrestling, because, you know, it's, as much as this is a dark time, this isn't what wrestling is all about. This is literally a bunch of shit people that are involved in the industry that we love so much. So it isn't the end. This isn't the end at all. This is just a speed bump in hopefully the highway to greater, better things, because this is it's absolutely not everyone involved in the wrestling industry. It's just these shit bunch of people that are involved at the moment that need to be stamped out. So let's just talk about the good things.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we can take hope or be hopeful that the fact that so many things are shut down now, this can be a fresh restart. Weed out the bad ones and hopefully restart. Wrestling has a new mindset because, again, we saw it did affect Australia too. Hopefully things can be better here as well.
Spot on. When we start up again, it should be just a clean slate. Let's make sure this shit never, ever rears its head again.
Yeah. And look, it's so crazy to think that there's another massive dark thing aside from this, but we should talk about COVID-19 and its ongoing impact on wrestling as well, because, geez, it just got kicked up a notch in the past couple of weeks as well. There was the trainee with the WWE who tested positive. They didn't release the name, but they said they were going to ramp up testing. And now we see that a few more people have tested positive, one of them being Renee Young.
Yeah, which has obviously gone on to impact John Moxley. He can't wrestle now. He's been taken out of his main event, which was scheduled for this week, because he's obviously been come into contact with Renee Young. As he's made it very well aware. I think there was an interview with him recently. Obviously, Mox doesn't really hold back with his interview, saying that he's been coming into contact with Renee Young all over the house, very naked. So I love his interview so much. So the way AEW are handling COVID is perfect. They're saying whatever the health department and everyone involved tells us, that's what we're going to do. And it seems as though WWE are taking the opposite stance at the moment. They're saying you're not allowed to wear masks if you're there, kind of punishing people at points for not showing up, as we saw with old mate Sami Zayn being taken out of it. It sucks a little bit because, we want, this is a thing we all need to get through together. And again, we need to ensure that everybody's doing this in the best possible manner. And I think everybody in the wrestling industry needs to just take a leaf out of the Khan's book and AEW, because they're crushing it at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like they're doing a better job. Hopefully what they're doing is right, because we do see people in the crowd at AEW not wearing masks either. But hopefully they really have taken those precautions, because the last thing we want is them saying, no, everything's been fine, and then a bunch of people test positive.
And then it's not, yeah.
But like we've seen, there are crossovers between WWE and AEW. Of course, Britt Baker, she's the girlfriend of Adam Cole, Big Swole. She's dating Cedric Alexander. There's a crossover, and it's almost weird. If WWE really didn't make the most responsible choices and they end up affecting AEW as well, then it's just a giant mess. Then it becomes a blame game. And look, we've seen a lot of people get sick who were, relatively healthy, or you would never expect them to be able to fall victim to it. But anything's possible. People might have underlying health conditions. So it's one thing to think, they're wrestlers, they're fit, they'll be fine. But it's still a serious thing.
Look at Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Roman Reigns is the big one. He can't be anywhere near a wrestling ring now because he can't be anywhere near people. He's just I think they just had a kid or just about to have a kid. And then, obviously having COVID when you're around young kids, or, recovering from cancer, that's two totally separate things, but that could be a huge problem for him. So it's all about making sure that everyone's safe and healthy, not just yourself in these kind of circumstances. And this isn't a selfish time. We all need to make sure that we're just doing things in the right way.
Yeah, I don't think any fan would blame anyone if the wrestlers were all like, you know what, we're not going to perform. This is too risky. I'd be fine with it. It's fine. Do what you need to do. A lot of things have stopped. It's not going to be the end of the world. Anyone
that does think that they aren't, they have no idea what they're talking about and really should just stop watching wrestling.
Yeah, if you're just some dude who thinks these people owe you something in terms of putting their health on the line, go get fucked.
Exactly.
I will say, though, there have been a few shows here and there in the quarantine era that have been pretty damn good. And I'm going to say the past 2 weeks of Raw have jumped nearly to the top for me. I know there are a lot of people worried that, I was going to say Russo. Heyman's gone and Pritchard is in charge. If this has really been the creative change and this is what we're in for, I think Bruce Pritchard has done a tremendous job. These have been the first episodes of Raw that have felt like a real episode of Raw in, I'm going to say, a really long time. Not just a quarantine era, just the pace of them, the way the stories were told, the way we saw characters on the show more than once and continuing a story throughout the 3 hours and even interacting with other people. These have been great shows. And if anyone says, oh, but I want a 40-minute match on Raw, nah, I'm sick of that. That has been one of the worst things to happen to Raw over the past few years. And I'm glad the pace has picked up. I've loved it.
It seems consistent now. That's the thing about it. Before, Raw over the last, let's say, year has seemed inconsistent and it seems skippable. But yeah, you're right. The last couple of weeks, it seems like this has a bit of a flow to it. It's not as rushed in some points, but it also doesn't feel like it's dragged out at all. Yeah. It's for what the time we're living in and the things that we're watching. It seems relatively perfect. I think that the Edge promo that he cut last week, I don't know who it was that was involved in planning that, but whoever did that, whoever created that segment, that is the shit that we need to be watching right now. That is A grade wrestling.
That was one of the best promos I've seen in a long time, and it just kept making me think, that was the first moment, and I love Edge, one of my all-time favorites, but for some reason, as good as his promos and, the greatest match ever was, he's done so many good things, but that promo was the first one that made me think, shit, Edge is back. This is cool. He's cutting one of these promos right now to wrestle and match coming up. Yeah, he killed it.
And all the promos that they've been showing of him pre-retirement were all him as the rated R superstar, as the ultimate opportunist, as someone that we hated back then.
Yeah.
People always had this thing in their minds is the last 5 or 6 years of Edge's career, everyone hated him. No one loved him. It was only in that last week where he came out and says, I have to retire. People forget that the week before that he was with Vicky Guerrero and everyone was booing the shit out of him.
He had a really short run as a good guy, but it was literally 2 months. It was the end of his career. It was the end.
Yeah. Incredibly small. But just before that, everybody hated the dude. And that was the best character.
Yeah.
And if he goes back to that now and just becomes this asshole or evil, what they're alluding to is this evil dude, then I'm all about that, because what he's shown us so far is we're kind of understanding you're back, you've got over this. This is great. We're in this feud. If they just continue down this path, we've just seen the same thing 3 or 4 matches now. So they obviously need to change it up a bit, which is what he's going to do. And if Bruce Pritchard's going to give us this kind of shit, I'm all about it.
Well, look at when Bruce Pritchard left the WWE. He left originally in 2008. He was involved in so much of the great Edge stuff that we remember from when he won Money in the Bank in 05 to 08, those 3 years. Bruce Pritchard was involved, especially on the SmackDown side. So he knows these characters. And I love not only what they did with Edge, but what they've done with Randy Orton, turning him back into the Legend Killer. So in a feud, we're seeing 2 characters. We saw Randy Orton turn. We've now seen Randy Orton change character. We've seen Edge return and also now change character. We spoke about it when it started. We were like, this feud can go on for a really long time. And this is how you do it. I'm for it. I want to see another match now.
Yeah, 1 per pay-per-view is fine. And I'm guessing it finishes up at SummerSlam.
Yeah, if Perfect. Edge is back, though. If Edge is back with his torn tricep.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is the next, I guess he will be back at SummerSlam. I think it's not as bad as what they're saying. Otherwise, I don't think he would have cut a promo.
Yeah, that soon? Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah. Otherwise, they would have left him off for a while and then cut a promo or then make a surprise. I think if they cut this promo, they know that he can get him back in some kind of way at SummerSlam. Even if it's interfering in a match, he comes out with a chair and then absolutely slams him with a chair or whatever. But yeah, I think if it either finishes at SummerSlam or he writes off Randy from TV or whatever at SummerSlam, yeah, I'm happy with that.
And is Christian coming back? Feels like there's something there too.
Look, I've said this for a long time now. The second Edge came back, I remember we were all having a chat about this, and I was like, Christian's coming back, and all like the four of us where we have our conversations about this shit, all of you were like, no, he's not cleared. I still say he's cleared. I say he's going to come back, and he is cleared. He's just passing it off like.
If he's cleared enough to take a punt, he's cleared enough to have a match. I don't think they have, like levels. I think it's all or nothing. They can't risk any physicality. I think they're going somewhere with it.
I think he's cleared. I think there's some kind of way he comes back. I'd love to see Edge and Christian one more time in one more match. And I can see it at like Mania next year, Edge and Christian versus whoever, Randy Orton and Edge, not Randy Orton and Edge, Randy Orton and who would you have?
Yeah, it's tough with Randy Orton. I don't know, Batista.
Probably not. Oh yeah, Batista's just a weird one. Some other tag team. Obviously, I was maybe thinking the Hardys, but obviously never going to get Matt Hardy back, and the Dudley boys are gone now. But maybe Edge versus Christian. At WrestleMania. That could be cool to finish off. I think he's got at least one more match in him.
Yeah, I'm all for it. That's been a great feud. I really like what's happened with MVP and Lashley. It wasn't a one-off title match. This whole story keeps going, and it's been one of the best things on Raw.
We get Lana out of the picture now. Thank Christ. That just didn't work, and I'm so glad that they've admitted that this didn't work, and they got rid of her. The MVP thing is working. I'm so surprised. When he first came back, I was like, why? No one is asking for this. No one's asking for this. But him as a manager, that's great. And he's kind of starting to pick up other clients and everything and kind of work his way through the roster. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, it's really good. And we don't know where it's going. We don't know where he's going to stop, who he's recruiting. That's been a great story. Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. That's not something I expected. I go back and forth on Dolph all the time, but this is fun because there's history they're building off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been good. Raw's been good.
Look, Dolph Ziggler, he's going to lose because he just loses all the time. Mm-hmm. He never wins. He is a loser. It's which I have no problem with. But I think it's a good in between. I've got no problem with him being the in between of whatever the plans are going forward.
They're all on Raw now. I'd like to see it happen. Ric Flair has spoken so many times about his dream modern Four Horsemen. Three of the guys he always mentions are on Raw: Randy Orton, Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode. Put them all on a team. Let's do it. These dudes, they're all great wrestlers. They're all a little bit older now. They can pull that off. Why not?
Yeah, well, they've moved it to to Raw for a reason, so why not?
Yeah, it could be good. And the last thing from Raw, a lot of highlights, but the last thing I really like that they've done is the women's division. Asuka now feuding with Sasha Banks. That's going to be a great match. We've got that set up. We've got Charlotte Flair down the line coming back for revenge. They're saying her shoulder's injured. She needs surgery to come back to, get revenge against Nia Jax. We've got multiple storylines. We've also got the Iconics still involved with something. So they're doing a great job of not just doing one thing at a time. It's been good.
Yeah, absolutely. Shayna Baszler too, wherever the hell she is. I'd like to see her versus Asuka. That'd be huge. That'd be the battle of the submissions. I really hope. There's been reports I've been reading about Vince being over Shayna too. I really hope that's not the case. I hope that she's injured or just has something else going on because if she's completely written off, that's a massive shame.
There might be
Especially
some people.
Remember her at Elimination Chamber?
Just killed everyone. Yeah.
She killed everyone and now she can't get on. She can't even get on Raw.
There might be some people who aren't on TV for reasons we don't know, or we just, they didn't release it because a lot of it happens.
Yeah, she could have COVID or like be stuck in Canada or something. Like we don't know that. So
yeah. Or
I
even
hope that is. I hope it's the case that she can't wrestle for non-health, like not non-health reasons, but I hope that she like has another reason behind not just being taken off TV for no reason.
Yeah, the other big one in the women's division on Raw is Bianca Belair. She was drafted to Raw at the start of all of this too. You've got two people like ready to go. So yeah, hopefully there's a different reason.
I think they're just using the people that are basically in and around Florida at the moment. Like that would make the most sense. But you got to look at people like Jeff Hardy. He's based in North Carolina and he's
rocking up.
He's still there on a weekly basis. So who knows what is going on.
Yeah, and also shout out to Dominic Mysterio for being a character on the show now and being pretty good. This like Ray and Seth stuff is great.
Man, I really hope that like it looks like Dominic's good to go. Like, he wouldn't be taking bumps or being in this kind of situation. So he's obviously going to be a wrestler, and I just hope that Ray can stick around long enough to have a father-son match because that would be off the chain. Dominic
is joining Seth's group of angry white dudes, and then he's going to fight Ray, and Ray's going to free him from the cult. That's what I want. Yeah, but
that would be so sick.
It's a really good feud, and it feels like a Bruce Pritchard SmackDown era type thing because you've got the main feud, and now they're just putting other guys in it, and it main evented, with like Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo. Like it's just a fun story with a bunch of guys fighting, and then this over dramatic stuff about a guy's son and a cult. Like, this is what Raw should feel more like, and I'm for it.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Moving on to, I guess, the Wednesday night wars, NXT and AEW are going to be running programs against each other for the next 2 weeks. We thought Fyter Fest was going to be the only, 2-week pay-per-view type event, but NXT this week was like, we're going to do the Great American Bash for 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, look, there's some absolutely banging matches coming up for both. We start off with AEW with Fyter Fest. I was calling it Fyre Fest, but obviously a very different kind of thing. You've got your Private Party with Matt Hardy, which if Private Party and Matt Hardy are a thing, I'm all about it. Matt Hardy is by far my favorite thing in wrestling at the moment. The fact that him and Bray Wyatt are an equal tie for first place for me, because Matt Hardy, you've got three. He's basically 3 characters, and the Fiend you have as Bray Wyatt. You have as 3 characters now too. He's just both of them. And there's a little bit of a weird thing. Like one of my favorite wrestlers ever is Mankind. Obviously, he had Mick Foley had 3 kind of things. A little bit of a tie into all that. It works if you can do multiple kind of characters. I don't think we go through all of the cards, but you've got Cody versus Jake Hager too. That in itself is main event kind of shit any day of the week. And that's not even the main event. So you've got so much coming up. Kenny Omega, Adam Page, and Best Friends on the for night 1. Like huge matches.
I'm excited for that. Omega and Page are a great tag team. I'm shocked at how good they are. They're both so good separately, but they've been a really good team as well. I'm waiting for them versus FTR. I think that's going to be great.
Oh, everything FTR have done so far, you're just like, this is where they belong. They were just unbelievably wasted on WWE for sure.
Yeah, well, they've got a big match on the second week on July 8th, and it's basically a Survivor Series match. It's a 8-man elimination match. It's FTR with the Young Bucks against Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers. That's some old school 4 teams in a Survivor Series match, like straight up 80s, 90s type booking where you're like, oh yeah, they're all friends. Of course they are. Sure, why not? Let them fight. It's going to be good.
Hell yeah, Butcher and the Blade too. Shout out Andy Williams from Every Time I Die, who is crushing it.
They've become one of the main things on the show now.
Dude, when he first, I remember Andy and I were having a chat about this at Unify a couple of years ago, and he told me before, he's like, I was like, what's up, man? What are we going on? He's like, I just got signed to AEW. And I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. In my head, I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, he's just going to be like, you know, maybe one of the background dudes for a while. But dude, he's like nearly up there main eventing this kind of shit, and he's only just into it. I was like, this is so sick. So yeah, hard work paying off for my boy Andy.
Well, they've got an album coming out soon, don't they?
Yeah. I think like middle of this, it was meant to be middle of this year, I think, but like maybe towards the end of the year. But yeah, the good thing is about COVID at the moment is that if that album comes out, he can't tour immediately, so he can still stick around and do AEW for a while. But yeah, that's I think true. There's going to be that little bit of a mix up. Is like what's going to happen if you know, the Butcher and the Blade continue moving up that card, and then touring starts again for E-Tit. It's going to be a interesting one to keep on lookout for.
Well, I hope AEW throw him a bone, though, and do what WWE used to do with Fozzy. They should use an Every Time I Die song as like a pay-per-view theme. Surely they're going to do that.
I'm so surprised they haven't already, but I guarantee you that will be happening.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
There's nearly no doubt in my mind that as soon as the first single from that new E-Tit album comes out, that yeah, it's absolutely going to be on a pay-per-view for AEW.
Yeah, hopefully they can perform at a show too and just like confuse the crowd.
Oh, I don't know if you've ever seen an E-Tit gig before, but I don't know how that would be the weirdest shit ever seen that at an AEW would have been.
I'd be for it. One day that's going to happen.
Especially no crowd. No crowd would be the strangest shit ever because crowd is 99% of what happens at an E-Tit show.
That's all right. They can get some of the wrestlers in the crowd to just like, cheer along and shit and fucking,
Get Jericho crowd surfing. Orange Cassidy just kind of standing side stage.
Yeah. Man, they should do a battle of the bands with Fozzy as well.
Fozzy versus E-Tit.
Yeah.
Yes, I am all about that shit.
Yeah, why not? And then on the other side of things, NXT, as we said, they just announced it. No one saw this coming. Great American Bash for 2 weeks. The matches announced so far for week 1, Dakota Kai, Tegan Nox, Candice LeRae, and Mia Yim in a 4-way for number 1 contenders for the Women's Championship. Should be a really good match. Their women's division is still strong. Yeah, look,
my money goes on Tegan Nox. For this one, I'm just, I bet all 4 of them could win it. And I'd be more than happy. Mia Yim I'm changing my bet. Mia Yim, or maybe Dakota Kai, or maybe Candice LeRae. Like it's just one of those. It's so hard to pick because that's how strong they're standing out at the moment. These 4 is any of them could win it, and it says a lot when Rhea Ripley isn't in this match.
Yeah, well, speaking of Rhea Ripley, she's in sort of the a main event style gimmick match because they've got to do something with her. She's got to beat the crap out of someone. It's Rhea Ripley in a handicap match against Aaliyah and Robert Stone. And Rhea Ripley must join the Robert Stone brand if she loses. She's not going to lose. She's going to pin Robert Stone.
She's not going to lose. She's not going to lose, and she's definitely pinning Robert Stone. I like where they're going with it, but if she loses this match, this is considered the first nail in the coffin for Rhea Ripley, because why would they do this? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Although it could be kind of fun. They'd really be pushing it, and they'd have to play it like really fine down the line and subtly. But if they screw her over and she has to join the Robert Stone brand, and Robert Stone's a real piece of shit and she has to eventually break free and fight him one-on-one, that could be fun. But definitely not in this climate. I feel like that's not something you'd want to do.
Oh, look, but who knows and who cares in this kind of climate? We've been saying it since the start. Go with the weird shit. Do the weird shit. Who cares? Let's just see it. I'm tipping Robert Stone beats her. Who cares?
Well, imagine the reaction she'd get though at a pay-per-view when she wins a match and it means she gets 5 minutes with Robert Stone and she can just beat the shit out of him like she's Hulk Hogan and he's fucking Jimmy Hart or one of those dudes.
Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, so that should be good. Also, I really like Robert Stone. I'm glad he's still doing something. Great talent. I like that they're using managers again. It's good. They've got a
absolutely.
I was going to say, next one, strap match. Dexter Lumis versus Roderick Strong. First ever strap match in NXT.
I missed the strap matches. Strap matches were cool. I want to see Dexter come out wearing a full Dexter chainsaw and a mask with blood all over him. I really want to see him embrace the shit out of that Dexter character because that's awesome. The fact that they were leading to that at the last pay-per-view, like, let's do that. Let's go for it. Why not?
Yeah, and he's given Roderick like PTSD. That's basically the story. So, Roddy's going to try to run. Dexter's going to be creepy. It should be fun.
Yeah, go cinematic with this kind of match. This if it's a weird match like this, a strap match, go cinematic with it. Make it really interesting. Put a camera on the strap and shit. Like, go that hectic to it.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? That's a good idea because the best thing we saw at Backlash was Edge and Randy Orton. It was kind of a cinematic match, but it was in the confines of a match. So you're right. If there's any match you could do it with, maybe it's that one if they're pre-recording it. Make it dramatic.
It's something that we never really spoke about. The camera angle underneath Edge and Orton. Do you see that a couple of times in the match?
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is that? Like, I've never seen that in wrestling before, ever. I've never seen a camera angle underneath the wrestlers. And they only did it, I think, maybe twice for a split second. But it's just that little bit of attention to detail where you're like, that's interesting. I haven't seen that before. And this is what this whole era is at the moment for cinematic is what haven't we seen in wrestling before? So in a strap match, we've seen strap matches plenty of times. So how can we make that stand out and how can we make it different from every other strap match we've ever done?
Yeah, and I think if we're talking about straight up strap matches, Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan had a great one at the Rumble, which feels like 10 years ago, even though it was only like 6 months ago. They can do something different here, go cinematic with it, like you said. And then the big match for July 8th, so the second week of the Great American Bash, winner takes all, Adam Cole versus Keith Lee, North American and NXT world titles.
This is 100% where Adam Cole's dropping the belt. There's no way that he beats Keith Lee unless it's a dodgy finish. This match goes one of two ways. Neither wins and it's a dodgy finish, someone comes back or whatever, or Keith Lee's taking both belts, because that way then you can have Velveteen Dream come back in and take on Keith Lee for
I don't think he's coming back.
I don't think he's coming back either, but let's just say for now that he's coming back.
Yeah,
because we don't know what the hell's going on at the moment. Let's say Velveteen's coming back, he can take on Keith Lee for the North American or the NXT. It takes the belt off Cole. That's in an interesting way, and that's what we're kind of looking for at the moment. If Cole wins this and he holds two belts, that's a bit of a step in the wrong direction, I think, because I think people are starting to get sick of him as champion. Like, he's great, but this is a long, long title run.
Yeah.
So why not take it off him and stick two belts on Keith Lee, who is the best at the moment?
Yeah, go full steam ahead. It's a big event. Winner takes all. Go with Keith Lee. I think everyone knows he's, the guy moving forward.
And what better way to take attention off of AEW than have someone take two belts at the end of a night?
That's true.
That's the way you get people to watch it.
That's true. Because as much as I want to see Jon Moxley versus Brian Cage, this feels like the bigger main event if that's what they're running match against match.
As long as it's not dodgy.
Yeah.
If you have a dodgy finish and that's not good.
Well, anyone who chooses NXT that week to watch live, if they do a screw job finish, they're going to say, I should have watched AEW, screw NXT. Yeah, that'll hurt them.
Yeah. Exactly. So if we go with that, then we're crushing it.
Yeah, so we've got those shows coming up, and just to wrap things up, we should talk about The Last Ride. The Undertaker is retired, I guess. He second guesses himself at the end, but I'm pretty sure that
he's not.
Be his retirement.
He ain't retired. Look, he needs one more match. The whole thing was about him being unable to scratch that itch that never goes away. So as if he's going to take a cinematic match as the last time.
Did you not buy it? Did you feel like he was trying to convince himself that he was happy with it? Because I felt like that too. Because he mentioned it too many times. He's like, yeah, it was good.
Way too many times.
It was good.
And the fact that like people that are genuinely retired that walk away, someone like Bret Hart, they go, that's it. I'm done. I'm never coming back. Taker goes, okay, at this time, I don't feel the need to wrestle again. But if Vince needs me, break the glass and I'll be back. That's saying that he'll come back.
Yeah, that's true.
That isn't a I'm retired. He didn't even ever say I'm retired.
No.
He just said at this stage, I don't feel the need to wrestle again. At this stage, there's not 80,000 people in the stadium. The second WrestleMania has 80,000 people in the stadium, he'll go, I feel the need to wrestle again.
Yeah, something's given me the itch. I think they should do it at the Survivor Series. A lot of people have made note. That'll be 30 years. That's it, 30 years. Just do it then. Come out, one last match. Everyone will be okay with it. Hopefully he's rested up, rehabbed, worked out, done what he needs to do. He's got,
if you can have a crowd, then yeah. If you have a crowd at Survivor Series, then that'll be his last match. If not, it'll be Mania, because Mania is his thing.
But we know who he is now. He's Mark Calloway. They're even selling terrible Mark Calloway T-shirts on WWE.com.
Oh, that shirt, man.
It's good. This grey shirt with like terrible font, a bad photo of him wearing a beanie that's like drawn.
Who wants a Mark Calloway T-shirt?
I know.
I've known Mark Calloway for 5 episodes of a TV show now, not 30 years.
Yeah.
No one cares.
And I also feel like I might not be mates with Mark Calloway, but I really like The Undertaker.
Yeah.
But yeah, wrap it up at Survivor Series. And then, because we know he's Mark Calloway, it's all good. He can go in the Hall of Fame at next WrestleMania,
Exactly. That's the whole kind of point.
Ramble on about whatever he wants and thank whoever he wants.
The Hall of Fame thing has strictly been they're saving it for when he retires.
Yeah.
And this is it. So
perfect.
Retire, go out at Survivor Series or go out at Mania and then call it a day. No one is buying. But it has to be this year because he is too old. If he holds on for another 3 years, then it'll get to the point where he can't do the match.
No,
I think it's getting to the point now where it has to be at Survivor Series this year or Mania next year, or maybe that is it.
Yeah, I think Survivor Series, Hall of Fame, Mania, you had an awesome doco, you had the cinematic match. This feels like a good way to just end it. Although, to be fair, I was happy with the cinematic match because of the shot of him raising the fist, pyro, light symbol, rides off into the sunset. But yeah, he's going to want to do it in front of people, and that's cool. It was a good show. It feels like we're closer to the end of The Undertaker, and it's coming soon.
I hope so. And I hope it's AJ versus The Undertaker, and AJ gets to beat him. I think that's the best way to finish this off. I think anyone else, if it's if it's Brock or if it's...
What if it's Bray Wyatt?
Roman. Nah, see, Bray doesn't need it. I think Bray needs to be... you look at the way Bray's going at the moment. Bray's splitting himself between 3 different characters. And if you have him up against someone else that's also splitting himself between 3 different characters at the moment, it all becomes a little bit too much.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, cool. So we're going to have a 6-man tag match between 2 people.
Oh, man. That'll be the ultimate cinematic match. Mark Calloway tags the dead man who tags the badass, and, Bray and the Fiend and the Funhouse. And
yeah.
Give him it's that Survivor Series. Perfect. It's an elimination match.
Survivor Series match.
Yeah.
Undertaker defeats the Fiend, and then the Undertaker then is defeated by the old school Bray Wyatt. See, that sounds sick.
Perfect.
But that's not what the hell they're going to do.
If they want to take that idea, it's there for the taking.
Book it.
Yeah, book it. To be fair, I swear they sold Thank You Taker shirts after WrestleMania in Orlando when Roman beat him.
Yeah.
So don't go buy those shirts just yet. I feel like he's done this to us before.
I would not be surprised if we see Taker again for sure.
Yeah, but it was a great show. One of the best docos WWE has ever produced. And that last episode, that was probably the best one. The last 20 minutes of it was fantastic.
It was the best. Yeah, that was 100% the best. The best documentary, best wrestling documentary I've ever seen. It beats, all of them hands down. And it'd be hard for them to top that going forward. There's not a lot of other stories you could tell. Austin's the only other story, but we know most of Austin's story already. Like he doesn't really hold that much back. So, maybe another story I'd like to see told a little bit more in depth, maybe Jeff Hardy's or someone like that, or even Vince McMahon's, because we don't get to see too much of his behind the scenes kind of work. So I hope that they do have a camera following Vince and we get to see a little bit more behind the scenes of him, because that could be really cool.
I feel like there's a lot of footage of Vince that they could put together, and then if he's willing to sit down and do a straight up bio, because they put out one years ago, the McMahon documentary, and it was very brief because it covered the whole family. There was some weird tidbits in it, but nothing as thorough as this. I think a Vince McMahon one would be massive.
Yeah, a Vince one. I'd like to see a Shane McMahon one too. That could be pretty cool. Going a little bit more in depth into his story and what he's gone through. But yeah, it sets a new level of what they can do with wrestling documentaries for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the alternate cut of the Boneyard match that they showed. It was like For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. It ran for the whole song. It was like a re-edited cut of the match. It was good.
That whole as soon as For Whom the Bell Tolls started, I was like, was this in the original match? Because this was sick.
Yeah,
this is what I wanted to see. This is like having Metallica play on there. I was like, this is cool. It just proves that the cinematic stuff is really on another level.
Yeah, that's almost another interesting idea. I know, every WrestleMania they repost those. I think they're called WrestleMania Theater, and they're like alternate angles of WrestleMania main events, and they're pretty cinematic. I think they should take it a step further now that they know people are willing to watch it. Put music to some of the matches and just put them out as these cinematic music videos. I'd watch it.
Well, I reckon I've seen the My Way cut to Austin and Rock from WrestleMania 17 than I have more than the actual match, because it's just so cool. So why not?
Yeah, well, that's true. At the end of every WrestleMania for a few years, remember they would quickly put together a supercut to the theme of the show, and you'd get that awesome highlight package. Do more of that.
Yep.
In this era of YouTube and social media, just do that. Yeah, do more.
It's so easy and so quick to do. So why not? Why not go for it?
Yeah, cool. It was a good show, and we're not going to commiserate the Undertaker and give our favorite memories because we know he's not done.
No, he's not done. But it's, what, if he is done, he was, one of the best ever. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. And if that is the end of the Undertaker's career, it's a pretty good way to go out.
Yeah, he's done a lot. And now we have no more docos to watch on Mondays. It's kind of weird. The great run of Dark Side of the Ring and then the last ride we need some wrestling.
Yeah, and then we got the Michael Jordan documentary. We were spoiled, but we got the footy back, so it's not all terrible.
They get locked down with coronavirus too.
Oh, let's not talk about corona anymore. I'm getting sick of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show. We're going to be back, and you might have noticed too, we have launched a secondary show. We're only going to do that every couple of weeks, reliving the war. Nims has rejoined the team. We knew he would at some point.
Hey.
So, Neil, you'll be joining us on the next episode of that as we take a look at WCW's first pay-per-view of that era. We're counting it. Bash at the Beach, formation of the NWO. Do you even remember that show at all?
I do, absolutely. That proves how old I am. I remember watching that and just going, I remember watching it and going to school the next day and going, what's NWO stand for? No, and I think I missed it for some reason. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about with that show because that's one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time.
All right, we'll get to that. So that'll be on the feed too. If you're subscribing to the Wide World of Wrestling, you will get Reliving the War as well. We're going to post that in a couple of weeks. But yeah, stay tuned to Twitter, Facebook. We'll be around. We'll be back next week. Neil, catch you then.
Cheers.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.